It's a much colder day today and it feels like winter is not far away. But thankfully we've finished the outside of the building, so it's time to move inside. The first jobs inside are the electrics and the insulation, as these two jobs go hand in hand. Depending on how you do the electrics, it might affect the insulation and vice versa. We're going to do the electrics ourselves, but if you're going to get an electrician involved, now's the time to have that conversation with them about how to do the first fix electrics. There are many different approaches you can take here with how you run the wires, whether it comes down from the ceiling, from the floor, or at what point through the wall that you put it through. We've decided to run our wiring through right up against the OSB. That's because all the fixings have already happened on that side of the wall, whereas we're still to install the plasterboard, so this way we keep our wires well away from any potential fixings, but also we can run our insulation in front of the wiring, which will leave a little bit of air room around the wires so they don't overheat and short circuit, potentially causing a fire, but it also provides us a full 70mm of insulation in the walls. The drawback of this approach is we don't get to drill the holes in the centre of the studs, which is structurally the best way to do things, but we're still confident this will be plenty strong enough. We run a line for power and another line for networking, keeping a 100mm gap between the two. At the end of the build, we will get an electrician round to certify the electrics and keep everything legal, but we thought it would also be a good idea to get them round now for a quick 5-minute inspection to check that everything is as it should be while it's still a very easy fix. We then had to drill through a few of the joists for the lighting wiring. A good tip here is to drill halfway through from one side and then halfway through from the other side so that you don't end up with the hole splintering out and making a mess of your joists. That's all the wiring complete and approved by an electrician, so let me take you through what I've done. Power enters the building via a 6mm armoured cable here, which goes up the wall to the consumer unit that will be located here. From there, we have our power circuit, which runs down the wall via a 2.5mm twin and earth cable to its first socket located here. It then runs along the walls to its second socket located here, a third socket here, and a fourth one here. And this is where we really benefited from having an electrician come round early. He told me that I'd run a radial circuit which is limited to 16 amps, whereas if I run a ring main circuit it can go up to 32 amps, which is much more suited to if I want to run a heater in the future. And to do that, all I need to do is run an extra cable from here back to the consumer unit. You'll also see that I've got a Cat 6A cable, which will be for our networking in the office, which terminates here at our second station, runs along the wall 100mm from the power cable so there's no interference risk to its first station here. And this is where it also enters the building, so I'll have a network switch. Going back to the consumer unit, I have a second cable that exits, that goes externally out of the building and up to here, where we're going to have a light switch. This is going to be a 3-gang light switch that powers the outside lights via one of the cables that goes up there. It's going to have power the main light via this wiring here, and it's going to power a auxiliary lights, I suppose you could call it, which is going to be a 3 round pin socket specifically for lighting with lamps or uplighters that we want to power from a switch. So there'll be one here and a second one here. With the wiring complete now, we can now move on to the insulation. If you remember when we built our stud walls, we created these California corners. That's so that when the plasterboard goes up, there's something for them to screw to on both wall faces. The drawback to this is we create this awkward pocket that can't be insulated easily, so we're going to fill it with expanding foam instead. We then measure up our walls for insulation, and this is where we get paid back for taking the time to make our walls built as perfectly as we possibly could, with a consistent width and consistent height between each noggin. That means we're going to be able to run all the insulation through the table saw, which is considerably faster. All the widths will be exactly the same and we'll get a nice clean edge, and it's a much cleaner operation than trying to cut it with a handsaw. Likewise, we can get the height over at the miter saw and a stop block, so we can just batch cut them all and get perfect cuts nice and easy. When installing the insulation, I aimed for as tight a fit as I could get without damaging the insulation as it went in. Although I can fill any voids with expanding foam later on, I'm never convinced that expanding foam penetrates the full depth of the insulation, so it's much better to do the job properly first time rather than fixing it with expanding foam later on. This did require a little bit of trial and error to get the perfect width and perfect fit, but this is the advantage of the table saw approach again, because once you've got it right, you can just batch it out and get them all perfect every time. Unfortunately, we still had to create pockets in our insulation for the back boxes, so we tried to make these as neat as possible and then sealed them up with foil tape so that we still had a vapor barrier in place. We also filled the holes with expanding foam once the cables poked through. That is all the 70mm insulation fitted, but before I move on to the next step, there's a few jobs I want to take care of. There's a light fitting over there and there's a light fitting above my head here, and I want to give that something solid to secure into, so I'm going to screw a batten in above my head so there is something solid there. The other thing is this front wall has a lot of timber and not that much insulation, and the timber is not a wonderful insulator. So when you consider this as a south-facing wall that gets the majority of the heat in the summer and the majority of the weather in the winter, I think it's a good idea to put a bit more insulation in place. So I'm going to put a sheet of 25mm insulation over this, which can bridge all the joins and I think will make quite a big difference. But I am concerned when I do that I'm not going to have anything solid to fix into around the windows for curtains, blinds, or the windowsill even. So I'm going to put a timber surround around the windows and doors so that I have got something solid there. And it's always a good idea before the studs disappear to mark them onto the floor or ceiling. When installing the extra layer of insulation, we used expanding foam on all of the joints. We did this partly for an extra layer of adhesive, but primarily it was to stop any air movement behind the insulation. We thought carefully where the layers of insulation are going to join because we didn't want them to be the same as the plasterboard. And we held the insulation in place with screws and a large insulation washer. Although this is only 25mm of additional insulation, I think it's going to make a big difference, particularly in the summer. And the last job for this video is adding Rockwool insulation between the rafters. This is a completely optional step that we're doing purely for acoustic purposes, not for thermal insulation. Rockwool is actually a comparatively poor insulator in comparison to PIR insulation, so it will change the thermal properties of the building not that much, but it will change the acoustic properties, we hope, quite significantly. Rockwool is very good at filtering out certain acoustic frequencies, which happens to be the same as rain noise on the roof. Also, if you leave this void empty, it can create a drum effect where the plasterboard on the ceiling becomes the drum skin and it actually amplifies the sound coming through the building. So by filling this up with Rockwool, we first filter out that noise and then there's a weight onto the plasterboard which dampens that drum skin effect. One of the consequences of this approach is it changes how we're going to have to lay up our vapor control layers. I already discussed this in part 5 of this series, but I'm going to put into action in the next episode. Also, in part 5 we got a huge amount of feedback, and I want to address some of the stubborn misconceptions that still seem to exist, as well as some of the really good ideas that we got, and some of the not so good ideas. Also, I'd like to remind you, if you do want to build a garden room for yourself, we do have build plans available, which should all be linked down below. Until next time, cheerio!